Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad just for this opportunity and just excited to help you guys understand a little bit more about the lymphatic system. Um, Really, hopefully by the end of this, you will have a whole new appreciation for the lymphatic system, a little bit more love for it, and just realize all the work that it's doing on your behalf, just to help your body function at optimal level. Also, at the end, there is going to be time for questions and answers. And so please just jot down any questions as the presentation is going, and I will be more than happy to answer them when we're done. But yes, for now, just you can keep your cameras off, keep your microphones off just to minimize distractions, and we'll go from here. All right, so by the end of this chat, I hope that you will understand more of what the lymphatic system is, that you will be able to talk about and maybe even share with somebody what you learned about the lymphatic system, its role in the body, what it does to help us. Also be able to explain what inflammation does to our lymphatic system, and be able to walk away with some practical things that you can implement even today to help support your own lymphatic system. So what is the lymphatic system? I mean, a lot of times we know like, oh, I have a swollen lymph node, but like beyond that, like, what is it? So we're gonna go over that. So we have 11 organ systems in our body. Some of them you're probably more familiar with than others. I know our cardiovascular system, a lot of times that's the one we think of most when we think of our organ system, right? There's the heart that's pumping, we have our arteries and veins, and that's all keeping us alive in that capacity. But there are 11, and our lymphatic system is one of the 11. And that is what we are going to talk about today, our lymphatic system. All right, so here are the components. This picture has a lot of writing on it, which don't so much worry about that. I mean, we'll go over that. But the main parts are the vessels. So the same way that we have like blood vessels because they carry blood, we have lymphatic vessels because they carry lymph. And so the vessels are the thin-walled, one-way highway, right? We've all been on one-way roads. So picture that in your brain when you're thinking of the lymphatic system. Like the vessels only go, it's a one-way road. And they connect lymph nodes. Lymph nodes on this image are those little bean-like shaped clusters. And the lymph nodes are responsible for filtering, assessing toxins and infectious agents. Our lymph nodes actually do produce immune cells as well that help us fight infection. And so I like to think of it as, excuse me, the lymph vessels are like the highway system. So, you know, all the green lines that you see on this image, that's the highway, the roads. And then the lymph nodes are almost like the rest stops. Like, I don't know about you, but when we travel with my family, we always generate a lot of trash, right? Between the wrappers and all the things. And so that's kind of what is going on, where like the vessels are getting the trash and debris from our muscles and our body. And then they're taking them to the lymph nodes, which are almost like the rest stop, where they dump the trash and try to keep moving on its journey. And so the lymph fluid is fluid in the vessels that kind of help things moving along, right? The more fluid, that kind of all that debris and stuff can flow a lot easier. And that transitions between the lymph vessels and the circulatory system, which I'll show you later on. But that really does, the fluid helps provide nutrients to our tissues and our muscles, but then also helps take away a lot of the debris and the broken cells that our immune system has started attacking and breaking down. We also have our lymph organs. So in this picture here, the spleen is that darker maroonish organ. And so our spleen is part of our lymphatic system. It does help remove old blood cells. And so that's kind of like a reservoir for that and breaks it down a little more efficiently. We have our thymus gland, which is in the center of your chest right here. Your thymus gland really is most active when we are growing in like teenage puberty years, which is a good thing if you think about it, because that's when our cells are multiplying the fastest. And so there's a lot of, cells that might be like not right, that need to get broken down. And so the thymus really being active in puberty when we're like our cells are multiplying fast is really helpful. And it tends to slow down as we get older. And then we have our tonsils again, which we're used to like the doctor palpating and feeling when we're sick. And usually those get inflamed, those nodes get inflamed because there is debris and stuff, maybe from a sinus infection or an ear infection that are draining down into them. And then lastly, our bone marrow actually is part of our lymphatic system as well, because in our bone marrow, that's where like our white blood cells are made, red blood cells, platelets, and then those also help filter back and forth into the circulatory system, which I will show you later. Again, any questions you have, jot them down. Happy to answer them later on. One more thing real quick that I will talk about later, but I just wanted to point out here that the cisterna chyli, it's kind of near the spleen, but it's right here in the center of your abdomen. That is an important like lymph reservoir that holds the lymphatic fluid that I'll talk about later as well. So why is the lymphatic system important? So you just kind of learned like, wow, there's this whole network of like highways and rest stops and things that are working to detoxify my body. But why is it important? What else? Is that the only thing it does? Excuse me. Well, no, there's actually other things that the lymphatic system does. So we did talk about immunity already. It also filters. We talked about that a little bit. So it does filter the toxins and things that aren't the broken down cells out. The lymphatic system also helps with fluid balance. So as it helps take like plasma out of our circulatory system and clean it and put it back in, it helps create fluid balance within our whole body. And then the other thing that is, I guess people don't realize, that the lymphatic system is also responsible for fat and fat soluble vitamin absorption. So the fat molecules are actually too big to be absorbed into our bloodstream. And so our lymphatic system is kind of intertwined with our bloodstream, and it absorbs. It almost has enough, the pores, so to speak, like are able to absorb the fat molecules, break them down, and then re-put them back into our circulation so they can go where they need to go. So that's a fun fact. So what changes occur in the lymphatic system when there is inflammation? So this is a picture of a lymph node. Like I told you, the rest stop, right? There's a lymph vessel, the one-way highway, and that goes to the lymph node. And then you can see the highway continues and goes into, empties into our circulatory system. So down here on the bottom right of your screen, you'll see the green lymphatic capillaries. And then that's the cardiovascular capillaries. So the red is the arteries, the blue, it transitions to veins. And then the lymphatic capillaries kind of web in between those. And that's where a lot of that exchange comes, where it absorbs the fats, it absorbs the fluids, and then puts it back into our circulatory system up top. And you'll see, like I said, it's a one-way highway. And then it does also have these valves in it. And so the valves almost act like doors. So as the fluid gets pumped, pushed that one way, then the doors kind of close to prevent like backflow into that area. Another thing that's important to note here and is that you'll see there's a lot of these, like there's 3 here, afferent lymphatic vessels, it's what they're called. Those are like the entryways into the node. So with every lymph node, there's multiple ways in, but usually only one exit route. And so that also is why sometimes when you're sick and your body is breaking down a bunch of the fluids and the things that aren't supposed to be where they are, our lymph nodes get swollen because there's a lot of fluid, right, coming in from every direction, but only one going out to get it back to the heart. So with that, when we have inflammation, so now that you hopefully understand that a little better, when we have inflammation, there are more traffic essentially on this highway because your body, when there's inflammation, it's kind of your body's signal like, hey, there's something that's not supposed to be here. Like send in the helpers, right? The construction crew, the wrecking crew to take stuff apart. So that way we can break it down, keep our body safe and move it along. And so with that, like all these other components come in of our immune system, and that just means more fluid and more traffic on the highway. Same with traffic outside. When there is more traffic, it slows down, right? Like it doesn't flow as easily. You don't get to where you need to be as fast. And so that's the same with our lymphatic fluid, where there's a lot more with inflammation. There's a lot more fluid and components that we're trying to help our body get rid of the toxins. And so then it's a little slower. And then sometimes when there is congestion, the vessels get stretched, and then stuff starts to kind of leak out into places they're not supposed to go. So can anything be done to help our lymphatic system out? Well, actually, yeah. And it's really cool. The thing that I think is the most interesting about the lymphatic system is that it doesn't have a heart to pump it, right? Like our cardiovascular system has a heart, and every time it love dubs and beats, it's pushing, that pressure pushes our blood through our arteries and our veins. But our lymphatic system doesn't have anything to pump it. What actually pumps it is things that I'm going to show you right now. So deep breathing. Deep breathing is an awesome way to help pump your lymphatic system. So this is a picture of your chest wall. There's your ribs. You'll see, here's the cisterna chyli that I talked about, this big green, almost like deflated water balloon looking thing. And so that is that reservoir for the lymphatic fluid. You see all these lymph nodes. We actually have 500 to 700 lymph nodes just in our abdomen alone. And so that's like about half of our lymph nodes in our body. And so deep breathing helps because it creates pressure changes in our chest and our abdominal cavities. So when you inhale, this like arched pink muscle, this is called your diaphragm. And so your diaphragm, when you inhale, it contracts down to allow more space for your lungs, right? Because you want your lungs to have the most space available to inflate. And so as you inhale, the diaphragm contracts down, you get more space above it for your lungs to inflate. But then as it contracts, it's pushing down on that cisterna chyli. So that little water balloon, right? Deflated water balloon. And that's holding lymph fluid, and it's helping push that and flush it out. As you relax and you exhale, the diaphragm then goes back up. And so that movement with the deep breathing really does help pump your lymphatic vessels. It moves your lymphatic fluid and just helps prevent that backup, like I talked about in the last slide. So let's see. I think this is... Yes, and with deep breathing, a lot of times I'm not sure if any of you have talked with your coaches about deep breathing, but all of our coaches are trained in just different deep breathing exercises. And the difference between deep breathing and regular breathing is a lot of time, if I were to say right now, everyone take a deep breath. If you're not familiar with deep breathing, you would probably see your shoulders rise, right? But with deep breathing, to really get a deep breath, babies are good at this, but we tend to lose the ability about deep breathing as we get older. But deep breathing is more instead of your shoulders lifting, it's your belly rising and like coming out and in. And so that's, if you have questions about that, definitely ask your coaches. They will be able to walk you through some deep breathing exercises that can help. Another thing that helps is active movement. You know, a lot of times when I'm coaching clients, and in general, I think there's this notion out there that like, if I'm not breaking a big sweat or, you know, active, like running or doing something really strenuous, then like, it's not really benefiting me. And that couldn't be farther than the truth, especially when light of the lymphatic system. And in the light that it doesn't have a heart to pump it, what pumps it is the muscles contracting and relaxing around it. So even walking, you're walking, your muscles are contracting and relaxing. And that's pumping all that lymphatic vessels, the lymphatic fluid in those vessels back up to your heart and around. The same with gentle stretching. You're stretching, guess what? You're contracting and relaxing muscles as you're stretching. So whether, you know, if you're working and you're at work in a chair, you're homebound in a chair, like even gentle stretching, that helps pump your fluid, the lymphatic fluid around. So that is super important, and don't underestimate it for sure. We do have some previous wellness series recordings from other coaches. If you're thinking of like, well, I don't know what to do, like where do I start with stretching or yoga or Tai Chi? So these are on our website, musculo.com/resources. We have a bunch of our previous wellness series recordings there, but these were two that actually had to do with movement that I wanted to point out. So if you're interested in watching those, please, those resources are for you. Check them out. Also, this is another thing that you might have heard about or maybe seen on the internet, but rebounding is just kind of that gentle bouncing on a little trampoline. Obviously, you know your body best. You know if you're like at risk for falls or if this is not a good for your joints. But if this is something, I just wanted to throw it out there in case anybody is interested in that, like, or has heard about it. This is something too, that just that gentle movement, right, helps with the pressure in your lymphatic system. And then it's also causing your muscles to contract and relax as you're bouncing. Also, you can manually move your lymphatic fluid. So there are professionals who are trained in lymphatic massage. And so you can get that done. A lot of times, you know, for example, with like breast cancer patients, if they've had the lymph nodes removed in a certain like armpit, you will be more prone to swelling in that arm, right? Because it's the highway system kind of is backed up. There's not a lot of that rest stop isn't there anymore. And so, right, imagine traveling and not being able to stop and empty your trash out of your car. Like by the time you get to where you need to go, like I know me, I'd probably open the door and all the trash would fall out from all of my kids' stuff. But and so that's kind of what happens too, right? When those lymph nodes aren't there anymore, stuff gets backed up, and that's where swelling can happen. And so a lot of times they will give referrals to lymphatic massage therapists, or you can find them in your community. Also, dry brushing. So there's videos online for this, but I really just caution if you have like thinner skin or you're taking blood thinners, like probably I would avoid this. Do just more of a manual massage. But dry brushing is really where you're getting a bristled brush, a soft bristled brush, and kind of going around your arm and moving the fluid away and then back in. And there's, like I said, there are in my resources, there's different resources I have there too. But But that can be helpful also for moving the lymphatic fluid around. Hydration. So hydration is important because, right, things do not, if you're dehydrated and there's not enough fluid in your body, then that lymphatic vessel, that highway, it's like trying to drive on an unpaved road, right? Things aren't going to go very fast. There's going to be a lot of like friction, things holding it back. So I am a nurse also by trade, and so I am not embarrassed talking about urine. So hopefully none of you are. But really, this is like a good, especially with summer coming, a good indicator to look at and say, like, okay, my urine's pretty dark. Like, I probably need some more fluid. Or like, okay, I'm good. Especially if you have like congestive heart failure or other things where your doctor has told you to monitor your fluid intake, like for sure, listen to that. But I mean, for the most part, just staying hydrated in general will help with all these. And signs of dehydration: lightheadedness, headaches, confusion, impaired vision, short-term memory loss, and kidney stones if it's too long, and clogged lymphatic system, right? So a healthy diet can also help with your lymphatic system, an anti-inflammatory diet. So here is an infographic from Harvard Health, just talking about some foods that fight inflammation. And so chronic inflammation, right, we know has been linked to cancer, heart disease, diabetes. And I wonder, and I'm sure there's probably research articles out there, maybe correlating, like if the lymphatic fluid too is stagnant and that stuff is just stagnant and those toxins aren't really moving, maybe that might have a role. It'll be interesting to see what research unfolds in the next few years. But there are things you can do. So choosing foods that are anti-inflammatory and avoiding foods that create more inflammation, like fried foods, sodas, refined carbs, lard, a lot of processed meats, and trying to make small changes to get more of these anti-inflammatory foods. Also, foods high in vitamin C. If you want to screenshot this real quick or take out your phones and take a picture of it, vitamin C really does help the vessels. I mean, you can see too, a lot of these foods probably have a good amount of water too, so that also helps hydrate your lymphatic fluid. But vitamin C can be very helpful in helping your lymphatic system. All right, and so to wrap up, you can use what you've learned to create goals with your coach around any of these topics. You can also use MAC. MAC is available to you as a Musculo member. This is the website. So if you don't have that, your coaches can give that to you, or you can screenshot this or take a picture or jot it down real quick. But I went in and said, how can I support my lymphatic system when I'm in a flare? And then it gave me 7 different ideas from rest, hydration, stretching. So MAC is there for you guys to use, especially on the times when you are in between your meeting with your coaches. So use it. Sure. And last but not least, they say knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. And so now that you guys have knowledge of the lymphatic system, I just encourage you to figure out one way that you're going to apply even just one part of this webinar to improve your lymphatic system and your overall health. So here's my references. If you want to screenshot that as well, you can. And I will stop sharing and we can answer questions.